Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of my Barakatir overview. Today we're gonna go over all the weapons, a sentinel, and also all the mods that you can buy from Barakatir. This is sort of in preparation for the special Barakatir visit that will be happening during TennoCon on a special relay that you can get access to if you buy the digital TennoCon ticket, where Barakatir will be selling everything he has ever had. So I put together a short series where I will show you all the items you can buy from Baro and let you know the prices so you can kind of get a rough estimate of how many ducats and credits you might want to get before the relay opens. And let's kick it off with primed mods, which is what I think most people are interested in. Now, this isn't just randomly slapped together, there's actually a system behind it. So in the first row, we have primed mods for secondary weapons. In the second row, we have primed mods for Warframes, Companions, and the Archwing. In the third row, we have primed mods for melee weapons. And finally, in the fourth row, we have primed mods for primary weapons. But that's not everything, because each row is also organized so that the order in which I would pick them up goes from left to right. So if we're looking at secondary weapons, the first row, I would go with Prime Heated Charge first because you can slap it on pretty much every secondary weapon. Then I would go with Prime Pistol Gambit for the mad crit chance, then Prime Target Cracker for the crit multiplier, then Prime Pistol Ammo Mutation, and finally Prime Slip Magazine. And it's like that for each row. So for melee weapons, I would pick up Primed Pressure Point, then Primed Fever Strike, then Primed Reach, and finally Primed Heavy Trauma. Just bear in mind that this is how I would do it personally, so if you want to pick it up in a different order, go right ahead. You can also see the price of each mod above it, so if you look at Prime Heated Charge, we can see that it costs 175,000 credits and 350 ducats, and I also added a sort of a sum total because a lot of people requested it on the previous video, so if you want to get all of them, it will cost you 3,565,000 credits and 8,270 ducats. Though this is just the price for picking the mods up. Maxing them out, that's gonna cost you a lot more. Now, my reasoning behind ordering them the way I did is mostly based on experience and usability. So the more generic mods that you can put on more weapons are generally up front, and then the more niche ones, like for example Primed Heavy Trauma for melee weapons, which you only realistically use on impact-based weapons, are at the back. The same goes for utility mods, which is why you see the ammo mutations and things like Prime Slip Magazine at the back, because realistically, how often are you going to use one of those? Well, the answer is not very. Moving on to dual stat mods, where the only two that are really worth picking up from Baro are Jolt and Voltaic Strike, because as you can see, those two are unobtainable. The other ones can be obtained in other ways, so if we go through them, Thermite Rounds can be picked up from Kuva spy missions and Tier 3 spy missions. Scattering Inferno can be obtained via the Lua spy mission or Tier 2 spy missions in general. Scorch can once again be obtained in the Kuva spy mission and Tier 3 spy missions, and Volcanic Edge can drop from Tier 1 spy missions. And both High Voltage and Shell Shock can be rewarded as a mission reward from Hive Sabotage on Ares if you find the secret caches. However, I still added the price of each mod as well as a sum total on the right for when you want to buy all of them, just in case you want to buy them because you either don't want to farm these missions or you did farm these missions and just didn't get them. Then there are the Slash and Impact based physical mods. These are not worth picking up anymore in my opinion, because as you can see, the Slash set drops from the Hydro list and the Impact set drops from the Terra list. And even if you don't want to farm them yourself, the price of these in Platinum is constantly going down as more and more people get them and put them up for sale. So I would personally not pick these up unless you really don't like trading with other people. And that leaves us with the 3 stances you can buy from Baro, which is Vermilion Storm, Astro Twilight, and Tempo Royale, and these are also not worth picking up. Because if you look above each mod, you can see, in addition to the price of course, that Vermilion Storm can drop from Drakkar Manic Bombards, Kuva Guardians, and Manic Bombards. Astro Twilight can be rewarded from the toughest version of Rathum. It can be gotten as a reward from Incursions in the Plains of Eidolon, and it drops from Isolator Bursas. And Tempo Royale can also be rewarded from the hardest version of Rathum, but you can also get it as a reward from the Lua Spy mission, and it drops from Denial Bursas and Kuva Jesters. So yeah, there are so many different ways in which you can get these. It is honestly not worth using your ducats on them. Even if you don't want to farm them yourself, you can just buy them because there is so many of them on the market right now. And now let's quickly go over all the equipment that you can buy from Baro, starting off with Maradetron, which is a Corpus secondary shotgun that will cost you 200,000 credits and 500 ducats. This is a Mastery Rank 9 weapon that doesn't have any crit to speak of, but it fires really fast, it has insane spread, it's super fun, and it has very high status chance and does pure radiation damage, so it's really good for proccing all different kinds of status on the enemy. Then there is Prismagorgon, which is a primary automatic assault rifle that will cost you 50,000 credits and 600 ducats. This is now a very solid rifle. It requires Mastery Rank 11, it does mostly impact damage, it has a very good crit, above average crit multiplier, and decent status chance. This is definitely worth picking up because it can just shred high level enemies with the right build. Then there is the Prisma Veritux, which is just a better version of the standard Veritux, and this is an Arcwing melee weapon that will cost you 150,000 credits and 550 ducats. Now, I unfortunately can't tell you much about this because I don't use melee in Arcwing at all, so yeah, if you're just using the standard Veritux and you would want something stronger, might as well pick this up. Then there is the Prismascana, which is a very solid single-handed sword that will cost you 175,000 credits as well as 510 ducats, and this currently does not have a mastery rank requirement. It does mostly slash damage, it has pretty good crit with decent status, which means you can use condition overload on it, and any melee weapon that can run condition overload can kill anything in the game. Then there is the Prisma Krakata, which is a bullet hose primary that will cost you 100,000 credits and 610 ducats, and this one is now even better than it was before because it got buffed with the recent rebalancing. So it requires mastery rank 11, it does a little bit of each damage type, there is 6 impact, 5 puncture and 4 slash, it has pretty good status chance, it has really good crit with very high crit multiplier, and it fires insanely fast. Moving on to Prisma Dual Cleavers, which are actually dual swords weapon type wise, and these will cost you 200,000 credits and 490 ducats. These are absolutely insane with condition overload. They do mostly slash damage, so they will proc a ton of slash on top of doing a ton of damage with condition overload. They have very high crit chance with a 3 times crit multiplier, which is very high, and they have really good status chance. The only downside of these is that they have pretty short range, so you will have to put on reach or ideally primed reach, so you don't have to be within kissing distance to hit the enemy. Then there is the Prova Vandal, which is a machete that you can get for 250,000 credits as well as 410 ducats. This one only requires mastery rank 3, it does pure electricity damage with decent status chance and no crit to speak of, and a decent attack speed. Now this one is not really worth picking up because it's overall just not that great, and machetes in general are kind of dominated by the Gazelle machete, which has a synergy with the Jin Sentinel. And the same goes for Machete Wraith as well, which is another machete that you can also buy for 250,000 credits and 410 ducats. This is basically the same as the Prova Vandal, with the difference that it does mostly slash damage, it's slightly faster, but it has even a less status. Moving on to Prisma Tetra, which is an automatic primary rifle that you can get for 50,000 credits and 400 ducats. Now, while this is not the greatest rifle in the world, no, it's really fun. It only requires mastery rank 4, it has okayish crit chance with decent status, and it does mostly puncture damage with a little bit of impact on the side. I just really like the way it looks, the way it sounds, and the fire rate rhythm on this one is really cool as well. Then we have the Quanta Vandal, which is a hybrid between a beam and an explosive weapon, where on the primary fire you fire a beam and the secondary fire fires explosive cubes that you can get for 300,000 credits and 450 ducats. Now this has always been a solid weapon, but it's been buffed through the roof with the beam weapon rebalancing, so it does a ton of damage with really good status and crit chance, so you can build it for hybrid, and the cubes just do so much damage. It's crazy. I would definitely recommend you pick this one up if you like beam or explosive weapons. Then there is the Vulcan Raid, which is a sniper rifle that you can pick up for 300,000 credits and 450 ducats. Now this one is a little bit odd, it does mostly impact damage, which is not great versus fleshier units or units that have a lot of armor. It has high status, which is not amazing on sniper rifles because they fire too slow, and the crit chance is not very high, so even if you invest a lot into it, it's not going to be super reliable. It's absolutely fine for normal missions, especially since it has sort of a hidden mechanic where it will stagger enemies that you hit, so even if the unit doesn't die, it will be staggered and you can hit it again, but the low and unreliable crit chance makes it pretty bad for idle hunting. And then there is the Prisma Obex, which is a really cool sparring weapon that you can get for 175,000 credits and 500 ducats. It currently doesn't have any mastery rank requirement whatsoever, it's pretty fast, it does mostly impact damage, which is not that big of a deal because it has very high crit and status, so we can run condition overload and thus kill everything in the game. And the stances on sparring weapons are some of the funnest in the game because they basically allow you to break down enemies to death, so they're super fun. Next up is the Prisma Angstrom, which I've yet to max out because I've been too busy doing other things, and this is essentially a mortar pistol that you can pick up for 210,000 credits and 475 ducats. It uses a charge-based firing mechanic, which on the Prisma version is really fast and feels really nice. It has 3 rounds in the mag, has a really high status, and does an absolute crap ton of blast damage. Moving on to the singular version of the Viper Wraith, which is a bullet hose secondary that would be amazing for newer players, but unfortunately it costs 75,000 credits and 400 ducats. This is not really worth picking up because, as I've said already, this would be an awesome new player weapon, but by the time you get 400 ducats together, you will have way better weapons that you can use. It requires Mastery Rank 4, has pretty decent crit chance actually, but it has very low status, and it does mostly impact damage with very high fire rate. There's also the Achlex Prime, which you cannot buy from Baro directly, but the relics required to combine the two Lex pistols into the Achlex Prime version are only sold by Barocketeer. You can't get them anywhere else. And all this does, combining the two Lex Prime pistols into the Achlex version, is it lowers the accuracy while increasing the fire rate. That's it. And the final piece of equipment you can buy from Baro is the Prisma Shade Sentinel, which you can pick up for 300,000 credits and 500 ducats. I would only really pick this up if you're a big fan of the Shade Sentinel, because this is a slightly better version of the standard Shade, but that's about it. It's not really worth picking up for the Prisma Burst Laser anymore, which is the weapon that the Prisma Shade comes with, and is a slightly better version of the standard Burst Laser because of Taxon, which is a new player Sentinel that you can get very early on and is generally just much better. And that's all the equipment and mods you can currently buy from Barocketeer. So I thank you very much for watching as always, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video and it was helpful. And I will see you in part 3, where I will talk about all the other miscellaneous items and I will do a tour of all the Captura scenes. So I will see you next time. Bye bye.